Well, howdy, Affordaplane builders. This is Terry Adair in Houston, Texas, and it's been a while since I've put anything out on video. But we have been fighting the rain. I guess this is our rainy season here in Houston, Texas. And what you're looking at here is one aileron that we managed to go ahead and put the covering on last night. Down here we have our second aileron, and the fabric has been cut and we're just wrapped up there waiting to have us an opportunity to cover it up. The shop is in a disarray right now. We've been doing fabric and poly brush, tack, ironing. We got some new product in from Aircraft Spruce. We got a couple cans of poly spray in. We also got a few cans Polytone. It's half a gallon of Bermuda blue. And then we have a gallon of Insignia white, which is going to be our base coat for our wing. And not that you guys don't believe me, but this is pretty much what we're dealing with. We got our workspace here. It looks like it's pretty much covered in water. Part of our tarp is falling down. Looks like some of our foam has been blown off our sawhorse, and it is saturated with water. Put that back on. Got our shop lights out. Puddles and puddles of water. A little difficult to work under these circumstances. There's our old tube of our fabric. I have to tell you, we were right on the money when it come to ordering fabric for the airplane. Pulled off the fabric the other night for the ailerons, and once we got both of those things situated, well, we found the end of the roll. We got just enough fabric, probably about 18 inches wide and 12 feet long, which is pretty much the center of the roll. So that's some pretty good estimation on the fabric there. You know, we fabric covered the tail. What's going on, kitty? You don't like the rain? Huh? You want to go in the house? Yeah? You want to say hi to everybody? This is Spoon, everybody. She's the kitty you see in all the videos, and she's telling me, I want to go inside, Daddy. Yeah, I don't like this rain. So we have this wing here, and it has been covered. We have the poly brush on it. And of course, we have the second wing right there. Really haven't been able to get too much done in this rain. We put some reinforcing patches on top of these areas where the strut braces come out. Oh, come on, focus. Yeah, there we go. And just double those up. So we got two different layers of fabric on those. And I know the camera is not going to focus too well in these close quarters. And we'll end up repainting those brackets. You know, once we start doing the painting on the wing, we'll probably just paint them with the white, since that's what's going on the airplane. We managed to get this tire taken care of. It seems like it's still holding there. It's been about 7 or 8 days and it hasn't deflated on me. But we pulled the tire off the rim, used a little bit of this Scotch-Brite and that file there. I kind of noticed we had a couple of little rough spots on the inside of the rim, so we just kind of filed them down with the file and went back over it with the Scotch-Brite pad. And didn't even take the wheel off of the airplane. We used some starting fluid to ignite it with the torch and just pop it back onto the rim, and put about 25-30 pounds of pressure in it, and it's still holding up. We did another bleed test on the brake line, and you know, one of the other fellas, I think it was Robert over in Australia, who was having an issue with his brake lines. I could be wrong, maybe it was somebody else, but I think it was Robert. And that got me to looking at my brake lines. My brakes were working okay, but I noticed that I had just clear brake, or well, this portion of the brake line was clear, and even though I was getting brake fluid out of that fitting down there when I bled it, I decided to go ahead and do the reverse, and I took the cap off up here, and there's my little squeeze can, and I opened up the valve down here and I pushed it in from the bottom up, and that's been a couple weeks, so it's still holding. Brakes are still working. That's one of the things we did. We did get some Lexan, which is out in my van. We picked it up, which is going to be the windscreen for this, and I plan on taking it up as high as I can get it over here, and I want to try to follow the contour of my frame and then come right on around to the post. So we'll be working on that. There's that aileron on the other side. Another can of poly spray back there in the back. And I told you guys on Facebook that I was just trying to work some odds and ends that I can do here inside the garage and stay out of the water. Now this is a piece of aluminum that I had used. It's a 2x4 sheet piece of aluminum that I've made a lot of parts out of this stuff, but you'll notice there's like a little red line on it, and that red line is basically the one half of the cutout that I'm going to have to make on my Lexan. Like I said, that right there represents the center bar of the airplane. Right there. And this guy's just kind of sitting out there until we put him on the wing strut. We did do a little bit of work on the wing strut, or the forward wing struts. You know, we had them pretty much fabricated, but we did go ahead and deburr the holes on this end. And then also, come on, camera focus. We also just put a light coat of aluminum paint all the way over them, just to kind of purdy them up some. Also, something I did here, I'm going to show you guys. If you can see inside, right here, the aileron bell crank, I did put a little aluminum paint on those too. But you'll see what looks like putty. And what that is some micro that is mixed in with some West Coast Systems epoxy. And I've mentioned this to you guys before, you know, how I used it in certain areas of the build. I don't know if you can see it too well in here, but there's a little bit around that aileron tube. And you can probably really see down here where I just kind of plugged the hole with that epoxy. Well, I made that epoxy up, mixed it up, and put it in there. So, you know, the bolts here, they hold everything in place okay. But even with that in there, there was just a tiny bit, not much, but a tiny bit of wiggle on this. So I went ahead and mixed it up, packed it down inside, did a little fillet or little fillet right here on the edge, and also put some on the back side of it as well. And that essentially just kind of glues that thing in place. I have a lot of that micro left over from, you know, my days back when I had a very easy, and it's one of those essential parts of the very easy or the long easy build. You can mix this epoxy with micro. You can mix it with what do they call it? Flock, which is just a little bit, or flocks, I guess, FLOX. But anyway, the flocks is a little bit thicker, and the micro is a slurry of glass beads, and it kind of makes for a little structural epoxy. And I've used that, like I said, on those ailerons over there. I've also used it on these inserts for my struts. Now these may look a little different to you. I'm using an 1.25" strut rather than an 1.125", and that is just because that's what was available to me. And I've made modifications to the bracket width and the receiving receivers here on the airplane to where everything goes in. Had to go with a little bit bigger bolt, longer bolt, but that just because what I had available. And so you can see a little bit of that epoxy right here. And so I put those in. So along with the bolts, which will hold these things in place, that epoxy held it in place for me so they don't ever slide around while the bolts are not in them. So if you disassemble the plane, those still stay in their place because of the epoxy. Now down here, this is the area that goes to the lower half of the fuselage for the rear strut. And you can see I've marked those already for receiving some AN4 bolts to go through. But these are epoxied in place as well. And the bolts will just shore that up. So that's another thing I can do here, probably in the garage, you know, while all this rain is going on. And I know it's been a little bit, but quite frankly, there's not a whole lot that I can do while it's raining, because this is my workspace, and especially when I'm doing fabric and paint, you know, I kind of need a few days here that we don't have rain. And it doesn't rain all day long, but we get rain, it stops, then it'll start back up. My plan for the main wing is I do plan on spraying it. I have my my trusty spray gun up there, so I'm going to try to do the wing with the spray. I'm going to hang them up and maybe drop some plastic or something, and we'll put the paint on them, and then we'll come up with the design. I don't know if I'm going to go, well, I probably won't be going with any of the ones everybody saw on the Facebook page, but I might do one that my daughter came up with, kind of give her a little pride of having some input on the build, because she did design something with the blue and the white, and I think that would be neat for her to tell everybody that you know, her dad picked her color scheme or her color design. So we might end up going with hers. It's a little bit more complicated as far as the taping and whatnot. Now you can see I have these wings attached to my crane scale from the ceiling. And I did weigh these wings as they sit, completed build with the poly brush on them. And this wing right here is right at 30 pounds. So once we put the paint on it, you know, we'll probably gain another 1.5 pounds. But anyway, folks, you know, like I said, we're going to go ahead and try to get some of these things done. Hopefully the weather here will start cooperating with us. I think we're at the point now where we're probably going to go ahead and permanently close this in. You know, we have that piece right up there, which goes here. We did do the other side. So it's probably getting to that time we're going to go ahead and close this side up and rivet it in place. I really can't think of anything else that I need to do inside here. All the electrical has been installed. You know, a lot of the connections here have been soldered in place. Well, I say a lot, but all of the connections have actually been soldered. Even these down here that, you know, they look like they're just crimped on, but in fact they're put in there. They've been fluxed and soldered and crimped as well. So we crimped everything. Then we soldered it in with a little silver solder. So, you know, those connections should hold up just fine for us. We have us an extra USB charger here. This camera really doesn't seem to want to focus too well today. We got an extra USB right there, standard. And then of course we have our what you call your Type-C USB over there, and that's going to operate the EFIS, which is on the phone that I'm using to take this video with. Plane's been sitting here for a little bit. It's been a while since we've started it up. Let's see what our battery's looking like here. Okay, 79 degrees is our temperature. We have a battery on there? No. 12.8. Can you see it? 12.8. So, you know, we might need to go ahead and, yeah, see, we got that indicator light right there that flashes. There it goes. That's telling us the voltage is low. So, it's been a couple months. Whoops, sorry about that finger. It's been a couple months since we actually started it up. And so the battery's just been kind of sitting there. It hadn't gotten real low. I mean, it usually sits around 13.2. Also, we need to go ahead and put some more rivets over here. And for that, I'll just disconnect the muffler from the springs, loosen the clamp, move it out of the way, and I'll finish up those. And while we have that off, I'll go ahead and polish up the aluminum, clean it up, get the fingerprints off of it. This here seems to be working pretty good. This is our inlet, and I've had some responses on YouTube about, you know, that this should have been, I don't know, fluted out and everything. But you know, my metal working skills are they're elementary, and I'm a newbie at that. Even all this over here, you know, so I don't have any special tools for bending or anything like that. This seems to work. One fella talked about just opening this whole thing up, but the concept that this is that you have a small opening, and it does look like it should probably be bigger, but the whole concept here is you have a small opening on the front, and then on the back you have a larger opening. And you can see how this has been kind of directed so that it tries to direct the airflow this way. Well, what we did is we used this big fan here, and we propped it up in front of the engine, and we stuck it right about back here, and we just turned it on, and then we used our little air gauge, and we did a before and after, one with the shroud, one without the shroud. And of course, without the shroud, you know, you get all the air just hitting it, but the thing is that there's nothing to channel the air, so it just kind of goes past the motor, and we were not getting any airflow back behind the back cylinder. And when we fabricated this, and I know it's probably kind of crude based on, you know, what a manufactured cowl looks like, or a manufactured scoop would look like, but it actually seems to be very effective, because the airflow goes in, and it is angled. I don't know if I can get a good picture of that in there, but you can see it does angle and go back. Let me see if I can get a little light in there. I think I have a flashlight out here. Oh yeah, we got a flashlight. Let's see if we can get some lighting. We'll shoot it from the back. See if that helps with the visibility. There you go. So you can see on the inside there, I kind of have a little taper, and that taper goes right to the edge of that cylinder, so it allows the airflow, you know, to come in here, and then of course it hits those fins, which are at an angle, and then it goes back in the back and hits that back wall, and it directs all that air in through the front and then across the cylinders, and then it exits out the back. And so here's what my experiment revealed. Without a shroud on there, we were getting absolutely zero airflow on the back portion of the engine here. With the shroud in place, we put this little wind meter up there, and we were getting 20 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour airflow exiting this I guess exhaust hole there that I have in there. So with the additional airflow on there, that should keep the cylinder cool. And once we get a little farther along and we get all this stuff buttoned up, then I'll go ahead and put some fresh gasoline in there. We're kind of empty in the tank right now, but we'll put some fresh gasoline on it, and we'll crank it back up and do a little bit of tuning on the carburetors to kind of balance them out, make sure that everything's running good, and we'll take some temperature readings off of those cylinder heads and see how they're doing. I know we were kind of getting close to you know, maxing out, or not necessarily maxing out, but you know, we did get a little intermittent overheat, but of course we're just sitting still. There was no movement forward as well. So I'm really hoping that that's going to improve things. But anyway, like I said, guys, I've been trying not to give you guys, you know, redundant information. You know, school has started, kids are back in school, and part of my responsibility is picking kids up from school as well, and you know, all of that kind of gets in the way of building, and you get going on something, and then before you know it, it's time to go run an errand. And then of course all this rain doesn't help me at all. This is pretty much what I've been dealing with for the last couple weeks. But like I said, didn't want to flood you guys with a bunch of redundant information. That's kind of pretty much what's going on over here at Terrier. There's a Affordaplane build. But look forward to doing a little video on installing the windscreen and laying it out, cutting it, and a little trick I'd like to try with the torch there as well on the glass. So that ought to be interesting. And then of course when we start laying out for the paint, but we're gonna need some good weather to do that. I definitely don't want to get out here and start painting something and then have it start raining. So guys, that's a 25-minute video, way too long just for update, but I will touch base with you guys when I get back to this, and hopefully it won't be much longer and we can really get going on it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and share the video if you know, you have any friends, any people that you know that would be interested in following the build. You know, I try to get the content out for you. I enjoy doing the videos. I enjoy the comments, and I enjoy the advice as well. So, all right, guys. Talk to you later.